She was only 8, holding a dry piece of bread in her small hands. But in just 20 minutes, this little girl would do something so big. It would make a bunch of tough warriors go quiet and change how two groups of people saw each other forever. Sometimes, the tiniest things can break down the biggest walls of anger. The hot morning sun burned down on the dry, cracked ground as Clyde Winslow drove his old wagon through a tight canyon. Next to him was his wife Clara, holding the seat so tight their hands turned white. In the back, their 8-year-old daughter, Magnolia, played quietly with her doll made of corn husks, not noticing how nervous everyone was. Like smoke in the air, Clyde kept looking up at the rocky cliffs around them. This was a dangerous place, where settlers and tribes argued over who owned the land, like lines fading in the heat. Every farmer had heard scary stories by campfires about people who went into these canyons and never came out. "Daddy, I'm hungry," Magnolia said in her sweet voice, pulling Clyde out of his worries. Clara reached into their bag and gave her the last piece of bread they had got. It was hard like a stone and barely enough for a kid's meal, but it was all they could give. They were still 2 days from where they were going, and food was almost gone. "Eat it slowly, sweetie," Clara said, her voice shaky. Not just because they had no more food. Magnolia took the bread happily, breaking off tiny bits and chewing them carefully. Even at her young age, she knew not to waste anything. Life out here taught that fast. Then Clyde saw them. Shadows appeared on the canyon's edge. First 1, then 3, then too many to count. Warriors on horses, their weapons shining in the sun. They moved like they belonged here, knowing every rock and path. Clyde's hand went toward his gun, but stopped. Moving too fast could look like a fight. And with Clara and Magnolia in the wagon, he couldn't take that chance. "Clara," he said softly, trying to sound calm even though was scared. "Stay still. Keep Magnolia near you." The warriors came down the steep hills, their horse moving like they knew every step. They lined up like they'd done this before. As they got closer, Clyde saw pain on their faces and how serious they looked. The leader was a man about 40, someone you'd respect and fear at the same time. His dark eyes showed he'd fought many battles and seen too much pain. This was Chief Royce Bannon, but Clyde didn't know his name. Behind him was Everett Kane, younger and more jumpy, his hand on his weapon, watching the family like he didn't trust them. The warriors circled the wagon, their horses kicking up dust. Clyde's heart was pounding so hard he could feel it. They were trapped, with nowhere to go. But what happened next would make both sides rethink everything they thought about each other. Chief Bannon raised his hand, and everything went so quiet it felt heavy. His eyes looked at Clyde, then Clara, then stopped on the little girl in the back of the wagon. Magnolia looked up at him with big, curious eyes, not scared at all, still holding her piece of bread. What the chief saw in that moment would change how he thought about the people moving onto his land. Magnolia's eyes didn't show fear or hate. They showed something he hadn't seen in years from settlers, just pure, innocent curiosity. But what really surprised him was something else. She looked at him like he was just a person, not someone to be afraid of or fight. The chief's face stayed still, but his mind was racing. In all his years meeting settlers, he'd only seen fear, anger, or tricks. Never a kid who just looked at him like she wondered who he was under the paint. Everett Kane moved on his horse, thinking the chief's skeet meant he wasn't sure what to do. The young warrior's hand gripped his weapon tighter, ready to act if his leader said so. The other warriors watched, waiting to hear if this family would live or not. Clyde felt sweat dripping down his back, even though it was cool. He knew not to talk first in a moment like this. One wrong word could start a fight that would end everything. Clara was breathing fast next to him, wanting to grab Magnolia and keep her safe from whatever was coming. But Magnolia didn't seem to know how dangerous it was. She kept looking at the painted faces around her, like they were just new people she was curious about. To her 8-year-old mind, they were folks she hadn't met yet. Chief Bannon finally spoke, his voice strong like a leader's. He said something in his language, sharp and serious. The Winslows didn't understand the words, but they knew it wasn't a friendly hello. It was a question, like a test. Clyde cleared his throat and answered carefully. We're just traveling through, going west to meet other families. We don't want any trouble. The chief's eyes studied Clyde's face, looking for lies. Knew how to spot when settlers weren't honest, shifty eyes, nervous swallowing, or a voice that changed. But Clyde seemed to be telling the truth, even though it was scared. Still, truth didn't matter much. These people were on sacred hunting land without permission, and that was against the rules. The law here said trespassers paid with their lives or their stuff. Everett Kane pushed his horse forward, talking fast in their language. His words sounded angry, and Clyde could guess he wanted to do something, maybe fight. But Chief Bannon raised his hand again, stopping him. His eyes went back to Magnolia, who was carefully breaking off another tiny piece of her bread, like she knew food was special. That simple thing reminded the chief of something deep. His own daughter, at that age, saving her food during a hard winter when their tribe almost starved. The memory hit him hard, but he pushed it away. Feelings didn't belong in decisions about land and rules. Still, he kept watching the little girl, noticing things his warrior training told him to ignore. What he saw next would challenge everything he believed about. The people threatening his way of life. The chief noticed the family was almost out of supplies. He could tell by how they sat, how carefully Magnolia ate. These weren't people trying to take land. They were desperate, running from something or chasing hope. But being desperate didn't mean they could break the rules. If anything, it made them more dangerous. Everett Kane spoke again, sounding annoyed. The other warriors started whispering, getting restless. Both their leader wasn't acting fast. They'd met many settlers before, and the rules were always same: make them pay to pass or stop them for good. Chief Bannon knew his people were frustrated. They'd been hungry for weeks because settlers had messed up the buffalo paths, and food was hard to find. His warriors had kids and elders back at camp, hungry and weak. These thoughts made him feel stronger. Feelings were something his people couldn't afford. He spoke in English, his accent thick but clear. You're on sacred hunting land. You have to pay to pass. Clyde's heart dropped, but he kept his voice steady. What do you want? We don't have much. The chief pointed at their wagon. All your supplies, all your horses. You walk. Clara gasped, her hand going to her throat. Walking through this dangerous place with no food or horses would mean they'd die, especially with a kid. They might last a day, maybe two, if they got lucky. Please, Clyde said, his voice breaking. We have a little girl. If you take everything, we won't make it to the next town. Chief Bannon's face didn't change. Not my problem. That's the price for crossing our land. Everett Kane smiled, happy his leader was finally acting. He got off his horse and started walking toward the wagon, ready to take their stuff. That's when something amazing happened. Magnolia, who'd been listening quietly, looked at the bread in her hands. She thought for a second, then looked at Chief Bannon's painted face. Her 8-year-old mind was trying to understand. She heard they were taking stuff because they needed it. Her parents taught her to share, to help people who didn't have enough she didn't know about. Land fights or sacred grounds are the big problems between their people. All she knew was these people needed something, and she had something to give. Standing up in the wagon, brave like only kids can be, Magnolia held out her bread to Chief Bannon. Her voice was clear and sweet in the quiet canyon. You can have my bread if you're hungry. Those words stopped everyone. Everett Kane froze, his mouth open in shock. The other warriors looked at each other, confused, not sure what to do with such a strange thing. Chief Bannon stared at the bread in her small hand, his mind trying to understand what just happened. In 30 years of dealing with settlers, no one had ever given him anything except trouble. What this little girl did broke every idea he had about the people he'd been fighting. The bread shook a little in Magnolia's hand as she kept holding it out, her eyes steady on the chief's face. She didn't know her simple act had to shed the heart of one of the scariest warriors around. Chief Bannon felt something break inside him, not his bones, but something deeper. The bread was small, old, and hard, probably the last food this family had. Yet this kid was giving it to someone she should fear. A memory came back, sharp and painful. His own daughter, Little Sparrow, giving her last bit of meat to a hurt bird, even when their tribe was starving. She died that winter, not from hunger, but from a sickness settlers brought. But this was different. This was the child of his enemies howling the same kindness his daughter had. Everett. Kane's voice snapped through the chief's thoughts. "She's making fun of us," he said in their language, angry. "This kid thinks she can buy safety with crumbs. It's rude." The other warriors nodded, their confusion turning to anger. They'd seen too many settler tricks, fake promises, that gifts to them. This was just a clever lie, using a kid's innocence. "Take their stuff and let them walk," Everett said, his hand back on his weapon. "The desert will show." "Then what happens to trespassers?" Chief Bannon looked at Everett and saw his hunger, not just for food, but for fairness after losing his brother in a settler attack. Everett's anger made sense, but the little girl was still standing there, holding out her bread, waiting for an answer. Clyde and Clara looked at each other, scared, knowing Magnolia had made things even riskier. Clara reached to pull her back and say sorry, but Clyde stopped her. Something in the chief's face had changed, not softer, but different, like he was thinking hard. Moving fast could ruin whatever was happening. Chief Bannon looked at the bread, then at Magnolia's face. She wasn't pretending or trying to trick. Anyone thought she was just doing what felt right, sharing what she had with someone who might need it. The quiet felt tight, like it could snap, until the chief got off his horse. Moving slowly, the other warrior stiffened, unsure what he was doing. Everett's eyes narrowed, worried. Step by step, the chief walked to the wagon. Magnolia didn't move, didn't pull back, just kept looking at him with kind eyes. When he was close enough, Chief Bannon stopped. His hand reached out, then paused near her fingers. What he did next would either bring them together or start a fight that would haunt this canyon forever. Chief Bannon gently took the bread, careful not to touch her hand, but accepting her gift like it was important. The moment he held it, something changed in the air. Everett Kane's face twisted with shock and anger. "What are you doing?" he yelled in their language. "Have you forgotten what these people took from us? Have you forgotten Little Sparrow?" His daughter's name hit the chief like a punch, but it made things clearer. Little Sparrow would have done exactly what this girl did, shared her food with anyone hungry, no matter who they were. The chief brought the bread to his mouth and took a small bite. It was dry and tasteless, but he chewed it slowly, his eyes on Magnolia's face. She smiled at him, so happy her gift was taken. That smile broke the last walls around the chief's heart, but taking the bread caused problems he hadn't thought about. Everett Kane grabbed his tomahawk, his face showing he felt betrayed by his leader. "You shame us," he growled, pointing the weapon at the wagon. "These are our enemies. They killed my brother, scared our buffalo, dirtied our rivers, and you take gifts from their kid." Some warriors shifted on their horses, torn between following their chief and agreeing with Everett's anger. His words reminded them of their pain, their hunger, their reasons to hate settlers. But others had watched Magnolia closely, like their chief. They saw her kindness, how she wasn't scared or tricky. Some were dads themselves and knew something special when they saw it. The group was splitting, and everyone felt it. Chief Bannon finished the bread and swallowed. When he spoke, his voice was strong but tired. "The child chose honor," he said in English, so the settlers could hear. "More honor than many warriors I've known." Everett's tomahawk shook in his hand. "You betray our people for old bread and a kid's trick." "No trick," the chief said, switching to their language. "I know tricks. I know lies." This was neither. He turned to his warriors and spoke like he was making a big decision. "Sometimes spirits talk through surprising people. Sometimes wisdom comes from kids too young to hate." Clara held her breath, feeling something huge was happening, but scared to hope. Clyde grabbed her hand, watching their daughter handle a fight had started before she was even born. But Everett Kane wasn't done. His anger had grown for months, fueled by losing his brother and seeing his people suffer while settlers took their land. What he did next would either prove the chief's kindness Ryder turned this canyon into a sad story forever. Everett raised his tomahawk, his face full of pain and anger. "If you won't follow our rules, I will," he said, his voice breaking. "These settlers will pay what's fair." He stepped toward the wagon, his weapon shining in the sun. But then something surprising stopped him. Other warriors got off their horses, not to help Everett, but to stand between him and the wagon. 3 older warriors, who'd fought with Chief Bannon for years, made a line to protect the family. Their faces were serious. "Move," Everett said, his tomahawk still up. "You forget who we are, what we fight for." But the oldest warrior, Thunder Walker, whose own son died in a settler attack, shook his head. "I forget nothing, young one, but I see what you don't." Thunder looked at Magnolia, still in the wagon, watching everything with big eyes but no fear. That kid gave what she could have kept. She showed honor when she could have shown hate. If we can't see that, we're no better than the worst of them. Everett's tomahawk shook as he felt confused and angry. These were warriors he looked up to, but they were protecting the people he wanted to punish. "She's the enemy's kid," he said, but he didn't sound so sure. "She's a kid," Chief Bannon said softly, his voice carrying over the quiet. "Nothing more. Nothing less. Kids sometimes see truths warriors miss." The chief looked at his warriors, seeing their mixed feelings. Some were still mad like Everett, thinking of their pain. Others were touched by Magnolia's kindness, seeing something special in her giving. This moment would decide not just this meeting, but how their people would get along in the future. Chief Bannon knew his choice would matter for years. Clyde watched the warriors struggle, feeling hope but still scared. He could see his daughter's small act that changed things in ways he didn't understand. But he also saw Everett's pain, how anger could make people do awful things, no matter what their leader said. Clara hugged Magnolia tight, trying to keep her safe from the danger that could still break out. But Magnolia wiggled, looking at the painted faces around her. In her 8-year-old mind, she didn't get why giving her bread made people so mad. She was taught sharing was good. Helping hungry people was right. The grown-up world of land fights and hat was too big for her to understand. All she knew was some people still looked upset, and maybe they needed more than just bread. What Magnolia said next would either bring the warriors together or start the fight everyone was trying to stop. She looked at all the serious faces and spoke honestly, like only kids can. "Are you all hungry? We don't have much food left, but Mama says sharing makes everyone happy." Her words cut through the heavy air like a knife. Even Everett Kane's tomahawk slowly lowered as her innocent questions sank in. Here was an 8-year-old, surrounded by warriors deciding whether to hurt her family, and all she cared about was if they had enough to eat. She wasn't begging or offering bribes. She was just being kind, like she was before. Thunder Walker felt his throat get tight with a feeling he hadn't had in years. His own granddaughter was about Magnolia's age, learning their tribe's ways. But would she be this brave and kind to strangers who could be enemies? He wasn't sure, and that bothered him. Chief Bannon saw his warriors' faces change. The anger was still there, the pain from years of fighting. But something new was growing too, a realization that hate had limits, and wisdom could come from surprises. Everett's tomahawk dropped to his side, though he still held it tight. "This changes nothing," he said, but he didn't sound sure. "One kid's words can't erase what they did to us." "No," Chief Bannon agreed, stepping closer to him. "Nothing can erase our pain or bring back what's gone, but maybe we can choose what we do with that pain." The chief looked at his warriors, then at the family. "This kid shows us something we forgot in our anger. Not all of them hate us. Some just want to share what they have." Clara felt tears on her cheeks, realizing her daughter's kindness was bringing people together in a way that seemed impossible. But she knew things could still go wrong, like walking on a thin rope between peace and fighting. Clyde spoke carefully, knowing a wrong word could ruin everything. "My daughter doesn't know about the problems between us," he said. "She just knows what we taught her, to share with people who need it and be kind to everyone." Chief Bannon nodded slowly. "Maybe that's wisdom we all forgot." But then a new sound came, hooves pounding in the distance. More riders were coming, and they sounded like trouble. The piece Magnolia's kindness had met was about to be tested by something stronger than a little girl's big heart. The riders appeared on the canyon's edge, weapons ready. They were settlers, following the Winslow's tracks. Their leader was Dutch Corian, a known for hating tribes and being quick to fight. Well, Dutch said, looking at the scene. Looks like we walked into a big mess. Chief Bannon saw the danger right away. These weren't desperate travelers like the Winslows. These were men looking for a fight, ready to turn the canyon into a battlefield. Dutch's eyes locked on the warriors around the wagon, and he smiled like a wolf. You having trouble with these folks? Don't worry, we'll fix this fast. He raised his rifle, aiming at Chief Bannon's chest. Time for you to learn some manners. But before he could shoot, something incredible happened. Chief Bannon stepped in front of the Winslow's wagon, protecting the family he was ready to punish earlier. His warriors moved beside him, weapons ready. These people are with us, Chief Bannon said, his voice strong and clear. Dutch's face twisted with shock and anger. Have you lost it, Clyde? You're picking them over us? Clyde found his voice, stronger now because of the chief's help. These men showed more fairness in one horse than you've shown your whole life. Everett Kane, who'd been torn inside, suddenly understood. These new settlers showed all the bad things about the people taking their land: greed, hate, and fighting for no reason. They were nothing like the girl who shared her bread. The young warrior stood by his chief, tomahawk ready. The kids showed us who they could be, he said quietly. These guys show us who we won't be. Thunder Walker and the others circled the wagon, making it clear they'd fight to protect the family. Dutch and his men faced a strong group of warriors who knew the land better than they did. The fight lasted only minutes. Outnumbered, Dutch's group left, yelling empty threats that faded in the canyon. When the dust cleared, Chief Bannon turned to the Winslows. Magnolia was still in the wagon, watching with big eyes, but not scared. Her simple trust had done something that seemed impossible just an hour ago. You can go safely, Chief Bannon told Clyde, his voice serious but kind. When you get where you're going, tell people what happened. Tell them a little girl's kindness reminded warriors to be honorable. Clara wiped tears from her eyes, hugging Magnolia. Thank you, she whispered, meaning it with all her heart. As the Winslow's wagon moved towards safety, Chief Bannon looked at the small piece of bread still in his hand. Such a little thing to change so much, he said. Everett Kane walked up, his anger gone, replaced by amazement. How did you know? He asked. Chief Bannon smiled, his first real smile in months. Sometimes spirits talk through kids because they still listen to their hearts. The warriors watched the wagon disappear around a bend, carrying a family who'd never forget the a little girl's kindness brought two worlds together. In that quiet canyon, something new started, an understanding that would grow like ripples in water, changing both people forever. If you liked this story, click the video on your screen to see another awesome tale of bravery and new friends in the Wild West. Don't forget to subscribe and maybe send a super chatto. Help us keep sharing stories like these. Your support means the world to us.